All right, we're live, ready to go. Thank you for joining us today, taking the time of your day. We have some helpful insights in the environmental services industry. I'm Joshua Paul, Marketing Director of SampleServe. I have with us today Russell Schindler, CEO and founder of SampleServe, a professional geologist who's been working in the environmental industry for over 30 years. I also have Paul Goodrow, founder of Enerin Partners, with 35 years experience. Paul helps businesses navigate the environmental industry. So these guys today are going to talk about profitability in the environmental industry, and I'm going to let you guys take it away right away. Thanks.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. So first slide, I guess, Russell. Thanks, everybody, for taking the time. We really appreciate your carving out 45 minutes here to join us. You know, Russell and I work very closely together with SampleServe, which is a specific digital solution for the environmental consulting, engineering, and laboratory industry. And, you know, we can talk endlessly about the features and functionality of the solution itself, but we also want to bring forward the business opportunities that technology has, whether it's SampleServe or other digital solutions that are in the market. We've talked to many of our customers and looking into 2023, there's primarily 4 challenges they all face, and you all face as consulting engineers or environmental consultants. The first one is around revenue growth, and that's organic. You're always asked to produce more than you did last year. Improving profitability, employee retention, and participating in your strategic agenda, which many of the firms today have a digital agenda. So over the last 2 months, we've had 2 webinars. One is kind of an overview, and then last month we had one on how revenue can be facilitated or generated from digital solutions. And today we want to focus on profitability. So let's talk profitability. Technology, I think, enhances a lot of things, as we mentioned before. But if we took just a slice of the business and looked at how technology improves profitability, there's different ways of doing it. First of all, I think there's a wide open space out in the industry right now for companies that you represent or individually to take a challenge, a leadership challenge, to really change the way the business is done in the industry and really not only improve your profitability, but position yourselves as a premier value provider in the industry. And I think the way you do that, one of the ways you do that, is certainly by looking at your services as technology enabled, but furthermore, people enabled. Today, we really talk about people enabled solutions. I think the transition here, the paradigm shift, is to look at technology enabled solutions supported by people. The second thing is there's a big opportunity to change the commercial models, and we'll talk a little bit about that moving forward in this presentation. But it's really about creating value, not only getting compensated on your effort, but on the value you deliver to your customer. And the last thing is, if you can put those things together, you will earn a premier value position in the marketplace, which means you don't need to compete on price. You have to be in the market, but you don't need to compete on price because you deliver an exceptional value to your customers. So as I mentioned before, we had previous seminars and webinars, and we talked about the first 2 pretty extensively. How does technology help you sell more work through differentiations, through going after larger pieces of work, and if you need to help you compete on price. Secondly, how do you convert that sales to revenue? And that's important as well. You can't just book a sale and not convert it. Otherwise, you don't have the revenue and you don't have a chance of creating profitability. So the second part is converting sales to revenue, doing that through digital solutions, accelerating the workflow, and enhancing your deliverables. The thing we want to talk about today is about enhancing your profitability. And how do you do that as an environmental consulting engineer or environmental consultant? We think there's 3 ways primarily of doing that. One is to improve your workflow, which means, you need to take effort out where you can, customize and standardize process. Secondly is really replace labor with technology. And thirdly, that will drive your margin. And some of the margin will be driven through those two things, as well as changing the way you look at your commercial models. So, what I would suggest, these are the things we want to focus on. Focus on gross margin. Gross margin is where the profitability of the firm starts, project by project by project. Secondly, think about moving beyond labor multipliers. You know, a lot of the business is generated through labor multipliers. You're all aware of, direct labor cost times fee rate, or within fee rate to get your margin, your labor multipliers. We need to move beyond that, because, there's ways of working less and making more money, believe it or not. So look beyond labor multipliers. And then the last thing is, accepting some risk on the commercial arrangements. So let's talk about those in a little more detail. So where do we start? Again, if you look at how you make money, how you make net income, it's a pretty simple equation. And you start with your sales to your revenue. And we're going to talk specifically about gross margin. We're not going to talk about indirect costs or other expenses that might affect your EBITDA or your net income. But let's talk about gross margin. That is within your control as a project manager or a project team. That's where your cost of the project, the cost of executing that work, is delivered directly to the project against any revenue that you generate. That's your gross margin. Now, one obvious way of doing that is to drive profit from technology, not people. If you replace labor hours, labor direct costs with technology cost, something important happens. A couple of things. One is that technology cost usually goes down with time. So labor cost usually goes up with time. So while you're replacing labor dollars for technology dollars, you're getting an immediate impact and benefit to that. But over time, you're going to receive even more benefit as technology costs are driven lower and labor costs will only drive higher. The last thing is to look at commercial models, again, within your gross margin pursuit. If you can develop a fixed price, lump sum, or unit priced contract with your customer, you can take revenue variances to your favor. Now you have to take revenue variances that are negative also. But if the scope is defined, if you have enough experience, take a little more risk, go after a commercial model that allows you to take revenue variances to your favor and increase your profitability. This is a really super busy slide, so I apologize in advance. But what I wanted to do is just use an example. This is a typical work breakdown structure for a simple groundwater sampling project. This is a routine sampling project, 2 days, 20 sampling points. Let's say they're groundwater. And I've included, the different tasks, the different primary tasks. So the first task is project management. Setting up the project, being sure that you're ordering the materials, supplies, in this case, bottles from the laboratory, anything you need to do to develop your scope of work. That scope of work will guide the field technician, the field staff, and what they need to do when they're out there in the field. The project manager, if you look at it, generally it's about 15% of the total project cost is what you allocate towards project management. We think that with technology, you can reduce that. So if you look across to the table, the first column is without technology, basically projecting the number of hours times the average cost rate of that individual compensated at, let's say, $85,000. I'm sorry, not per hour, but $85,000. And looking at your cost rate. So at 15%, you get a cost basis of about $785 for that 15% of time. We think through technology, you can reduce that, specifically in this case, by 50%, reducing your direct cost to the project. Again, field sampling, those are your crews or people that are going out there, projecting 16 hours, looking at cost rate without technology of 400, with technology of 320, 20% decrease in cost. Analytical services, data management, and reporting. Similar things. The analytical delivery, sample prep, labeling, chain of custody, sample preservation, transportation, etc. 4 hours at $25 an hour cost rate, $25 an hour. You get $100, reduce that 50% through technology. Very similarly with data management, and then lastly with reporting. Suffice it to say, if you replace labor hours with technology, you're going to reduce the number of hours and you're going to create less cost to the project. In this case, if you take no technology, the cost, the gross margin is about $3,400, 65% gross margin. It was pretty standard across the industry. With technology, you increase it by over $600, and you get a 77% gross margin for that project, and that includes $10 a sample for technology fees. So something I didn't include in the table was technology fees. If you're going to replace labor hours with technology, obviously technology is not free. So suffice it to say, look at your project as a project where if you're replacing direct cost of labor with technology, you're going to make more margin, of course, if it's a unit price or fixed price contract. Next slide. So let's talk about commercial models. Again, time and materials, that the only way to improve profitability on time and materials is to improve your spread between your labor cost and your fee rate, right? So if you have somebody who's billing out $100 an hour and their fee rate is 25, you're making a 4.0. Wouldn't you love that? But that's the only way you improve your profitability, unless you're taking something on reimbursables or subs. But they have that margin on labor has its limits. As you know, labor costs will continue to increase, and your fee rates aren't guaranteed to increase. A lot of contracts that you may have now are evergreen contracts or MSAs, where maybe they allow annual increases of cost of living, maybe not. They have to be negotiated on the annual basis. And you get yourself in a position where your margin on labor deteriorates with time over the course of the year, over the course of the contract. Now, it's also great to say you can replace labor at a lower cost rate, but that's difficult to do. You have to bring new people into the project. You need to train them, educate them about the project, become part of the team. And so if you're left with this core group of staff where their labor costs are going up and your fees aren't, your margin's getting squeezed, right? And again, I'll say this again, but if you adopt technology, your initial cost will be an offset to your direct labor, but through time, technology costs will decrease, and that's the right direction you need to take your cost of your projects. So what do you do about that? You run out of runway, basically, when it comes to generating labor margin off of fees only. Well, you look at numerous ways to fix price a project, right? You can fix price it across a portfolio, where you're spreading your risk across multiple projects, and you're assuming that you're going to have a mean deliverable cost of X, and some will go up, while some go down. That's a lot of way liability transfer projects work in the industry today. You can look at it as a project, individual project with a very firm scope that you have. You can look at day rates, task, and deliverable rates. So you can break up a project in many different ways to create yourself a target, a revenue target that you can work from and manage your cost to generate margins from that project. Again, drive labor efficiency through hours, the workflow, and technology. Technology, by definition, will create a simpler process in your business. In order to really deploy technology, at least standard technology, you need a simplified workflow. Technology doesn't always take into the complexities of a project that you may think inherently exist. If you use technology, it's going to, by definition, reduce the number of hours and improve the efficiency of your work process. The other thing is technology it really reduces redundant work and rework for activities that may have not gone so well, right? So transposing data from your field tablet to your laptop and your laptop to your enterprise system, there's a lot of potential points for rework and error, and technology solves that. So you don't have any additional costs beyond what you've already scoped. And then the last thing I'll say is that technology helps you push tasks down to the lowest competent level. Now, even with a fixed price model, or even with a time materials model, technology will help you deliver those tasks at a lower level in the organization. And what happens, generally, your labor multipliers increase as you go lower in the organization. Your entry level field people have a better labor multiplier than your senior people. They also have a lower cost rate than your senior people. So you're going to win regardless of the commercial model if you can push the work task to the lowest competent level in the organization. Now, there's a picture here of a nail gun on a roof, and it's simple. Nail guns for roofing probably wouldn't have been invented unless people went to a commercial model that was fixed price. And much of the work being done today in the environmental consulting industry is time materials. So I urge you to look at alternative commercial models. Thanks, Russell.
Yeah.
So in summary, I know I've gone super fast about this, but let's be really pragmatic about how we look at generating profit. It's easy to say that technology generates more revenue, more profit, more employee retention. But it's true. If you dig into your business and you understand how to position yourselves as a premier provider, secondly, you understand how you make money. I think everybody has a general understanding of how the business makes money, but get to be an expert on gross margins. If you're a project manager managing a project team, even if you're an office manager managing indirect expenses also, the gross margin, the project profitability is where it all starts. So understand how you do that. Thirdly, evaluate and change your commercial models if you can, with customers. A lot of customers are very receptive to non-T&M models. They think that maybe, as a consultant, you may take on a little more risk, which you do. But if you know what you're doing and the scope is fairly clear, that risk translates to more profitability. The fourth thing is team with digital solution providers to enable your success. Don't invent them yourself. I mean, I know that's a fairly strong thing to say, but I've been in the environmental consulting industry for 45 years, and I understand what it is to develop applications internal to businesses like ours. It's very difficult to retain the focus by people, by the CFO and others who have to invest in them, and actually very difficult to sell to customers as a consultant. So team with your digital solutions providers to enable your success, meaning find those people that can put the tools in your toolbox to deliver success, not just to yourself, but to your customers. And the last thing is, as you all know, you've been hiring people, the new workforce wants to engage in places where they do meaningful work and it's effective and efficient to do the work. They want tools that will make them more effective and more efficient. They're looking for smart solutions. So you will attract and retain employees by bringing technology into the workplace and allowing them to use them to become the most effective they can become. So that's my summary. I think, Russell, you might have a couple of things to add on, right?
Yeah. So thank you, Paul, for that unique and intricate insight into the details of managing projects. The SampleServe tool is actually a product for doing environmental sampling and reporting. It's got a great project management tool. In the field app, actually makes your field techs about 20% more efficient in the field. So it's very simple to use, and it works with a mobile printer. You can print your labels at the same time. Saves a lot of time. And that's how we get those changes. And then there's a built-in digital chain of custody. So there's a lot of efficiencies created there. You're not sitting in the parking lot of a laboratory for 20 minutes trying to fill out your chain of custody. It actually comes right off the device, can actually be sent right to the laboratory. And then really the biggest cost savings in the report production. We can generate a full suite of graphics, all the common graphics, data box maps, groundwater contour maps, isochemical contour maps, all kinds of graphs and tables really quickly. And what that means is an overall efficiency gain and it's really kind of in the ballpark of what you were talking about, Paul, is about 50% on average. Some people are getting 40, some are getting 60. So you can see here, it literally saves you in every category of work, project setup, the sampling part, the graphic preparation and the report preparation. And it really kind of pushes the ability to generate all these graphics to a lower level, which is what Paul was saying. It's one of the things that a lot of the project managers are saying about our product that are using it, is that they can get their work out the door themselves without having to wait in the queue for the AutoCAD or GIS person to get their graphics prepared. So, and so I'll let you take this, Paul, the next steps. To you, Paul. I think maybe you're muted.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, I was muted. Sounded really good. I'm really sorry you guys missed that part.
I'm sure it was.
But, when I think through the next steps of employing really any technology, and specifically for SampleServe has a super easy way to get up online and get going with your sampling needs. But, really for any technology, you need to understand your client's digital assets. What is it that your client has surrounding him or her to make their life more effective? And, there's likely going to be an enterprise level a financial system that they have. There's likely an enterprise level data management, environmental management system that they have. How you interface with that is super important. You're collecting the raw data that they need to make business decisions. And so by understanding where this data is going, you can be much more effective in selecting your tools, in your toolkit for your applications. In this case, you're collecting field data and you're collecting analytical data primarily. And so when you look at what your clients' needs are, what are they doing with that information? So suffice it to say, to be most effective and to carve out that premier value position, you need to know what the digital assets of your companies are. And I'm sure you're always talking to them about that. The second thing is challenge your work processes and develop routine work activities. Why is it that you can go to a bumper when you get your car dented and nicked or something, you go in and you have the right fender that's dented or nicked? They know what a right fender repair costs. They know what it costs to either replace the fender or dent it out and paint it and get it back to you, right? It's not that easy, obviously, when it comes to complex environmental issues, but there are parts of our work that we do that can be standardized. And I urge you to look at those. We don't need to create unique solutions for every one of our customers. Our customers do have boundary conditions that they want to work in. They have safety requirements. They have maybe digital formats. They have billing instructions. They have all kinds of things that we need to adhere to as a consultant or a consulting engineer. But in the work that we can control, I urge you to take a look at your work process and simplify it and make them routine activities. Again, going back to what we talked about earlier, technology works best when there's simplified processes. What that does is reduce your cost, your level of effort, and allows you to push work down to the lowest competent level. Third thing, simplify your work products and your commercial frameworks. Again, simplifying not just the way you do work, but what you deliver to the customer. Maps that you can save that are routine that take you 10 seconds instead of, an hour to develop. Reports and tables and such that are routine and standardized that you can get to the customer. SampleServe has a great back-end functionality to deliver maps, graphs, tables that are savable under the requirements you want and reproducible on an ongoing basis. And then your commercial models. Don't be afraid to use lump sum unit price. For those of you who used them, they're super simple. I think you'll really like them. I know when I first started them, it was a little scary, but afterwards, I'd love to do nothing more than fixed price models. And then lastly, I'd say seek out and implement client-facing digital solutions. What that means is really, there are a lot of solutions that maybe your company has that are internal facing, your enterprise accounting management system, your HR or people management systems, your IT systems that you need to really function as a business internally. There are numerous products that are out there in the market that you can find to integrate into your services. Again, make your services, technology services, people enabled. That is a mind shift that really helps you think about, okay, for any scope of work, is there a technology that will really help me deliver this to a customer? Not only faster, but also better, because that will lead to a more satisfied customer and obviously better margins for you. So again, it's really about looking at the digital solutions that are out there in the market, matching them with your client needs, and really developing the internal leadership that's required to change your commercial models and reduce your workflow to improve your efficiencies.
You guys
Are there
covered
any?
it pretty well.
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, you guys covered it pretty well. Paul, you're a master with words, man. I tell you what.
He is.
Hey, if anybody has any questions, you can throw them in the chat at any time, even after this is over. We'll the comments are still going to stay there, and this post is going to be up forever. So, we'll get back to any questions that you guys have. You can also email Russell at sampleserve.com. I want to ask you guys some questions though. Paul, you talked about like with changing business models, flat rate fees, stuff like that. I know a lot of businesses are worried, about taking on more risk because it can be risky sometimes. What are ways do you think that a business can minimize that kind of risk?
Well, the best way is to do what you do best, right? So if you know how to do something very well, there isn't much risk there. If you're taking on work that's ill-defined or you don't do well, stay away from it. So it's really about carving out that position in the market that you're very good at. And I think, we can be good at a lot of things when it comes to consultancies, but I think each one of your firms probably has something they're very good at. And I would say start there. Start with those things that you know how to do, that's been repeated throughout your history. You have the staff to do it. You have the procedures to do it, and you're confident you can execute on it. And start small. You don't need to, I've been involved in big mega corporations that take on, billion-dollar projects, fixed price contracts. Those can drive you out of business if you fail on those. But you don't need to do that. Do it incrementally and do it on scope of work that you can execute effectively.
Awesome.
One thing I would add to that is that human beings are actually very inventive. I mean, even people who don't consider themselves inventive are actually inventive. We always look for efficiencies and doing things. If there's a shortcut, still doing the job correctly, people tend to take that and they tend to come up with things. I mean, there's more patents issued now than ever before on an annual basis because people are learning and discovering new ways to get work done. And so if you do go to a flat rate, I think you will see that people, the productivity becomes the incentive, getting more done because you're getting more revenue and more profitability. So that's the kind of my take on it is that people are inventive and creative, and you'll actually, and I've seen it personally when you give somebody a task and say, hey, I'm going to pay you a flat fee for this thing. As Paul said earlier, if you paid a roofer by the hour, the nail gun would have never been invented, right?
Right.
Because when you pay them on a square of a unit cost, all of a sudden they want to get as many units done in a short amount of time as possible, thus the nail gun. So.
Cool. We got Nick here. He asked some good questions. Nick wants to know, how does creating a map for the first time work on SampleServe?
Well, so there's lots of ways. If you have GPS coordinates on all of your sample locations and you've input that, which is a simple drag and drop of your file, we can actually do a Google Earth type map where everything's located already. But you can also, if you've got an existing site map, maybe an image with all your well locations, you can upload that image to the platform, and then you kind of manually locate your sample locations on an XY coordinate on that particular image. And then all your data will be populated to that location on that image. And you can have as many images as you want. You can have a wide area map and then a hotspot map and then a cross section. You'll just manually locate those And then all that data goes to that spot. So there's lots of ways to get images in there. You can even do a photograph. If you've got a remediation system, you want to show the influent, the between, and the effluent, you'll just on that particular image, click on those spots and, assign the appropriate location. And all the data for each one of those points would populate on that map.
Yeah,
it's very easy to customize.
That kind of coincides with this next question is, can I use GPS coordinates to add locations? Which,
yeah, exactly.
Simply just uploading either any kind of CSV file with GPS locations, or when you're out in the field using the app, it sets the GPS locations automatically there.
Yeah, it'll actually expand the frame of the image to whatever the spread of your GPS, it puts a nice margin on the outside of it. You got to make sure that you have the negatives in there properly, because I've sometimes typed in, if you get a typo in your GPS, it'll show, one map over in Wisconsin and the rest, or one location over in Wisconsin and the rest of your stuff over in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
So
yes. One number
make sure that the
map way off.
Yeah. But yeah, if you got them all typed in there correctly, it's going to give you a nice little image.
Nice. Thanks for the questions, Nick. One last thing. We got some new videos coming out for SampleServe explaining how quick it is to, just from starting an account to getting a analytical table or creating a map, it takes about 5 minutes, right, Russell?
Yeah. So getting data into the system and there's no charge to upload historical data, get your project all set up. It's all free. And if all the pricing that we do charge for some things, creating reports and stuff, but all your historical data, you can get it all in there and run all of the reports you want at no cost. But from the time to, get your data in, for people that are experiencing, you can get it done in under 5 minutes. For a first-time user, it might take you 30 minutes, but the more you do, the faster it'll get, and it'll actually be very, very easy. So, and I think what a lot of people say about it is, we've got all these training videos, but for the most part, the it's very intuitive. A lot of people just kind of go in there and they figure it out without even having to go through all the training videos.
Right. So somebody can start an account today, and if they wanted to, they could be using SampleServe in the field, planning projects, going in the field by tomorrow.
Correct. Yes.
It's good to hear. I think we covered everything we need, guys. What do you think?
Yeah.
I think Russell's phone number might be 231, not 213.
Oh, sorry.
You think?
I just, you're right.
I think so too. Yeah. Keep in mind, 231, everybody, if you want to give it a
call now. Well, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. And there's lots of ways to grow your profitability. If anything we can do to help, we certainly want to help you. We're in it together.
All right.
All right. That'll do it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.